In this video, we're going to look at the revenue changes view. When you hit the menu link revenue changes under the metrics area, you will come to the overview page and be presented by 4 KPIs related to both the recurring and contracted revenue. Here we can see what builds up the recurring revenue in terms of MRR or ARR, and also contracted revenues. Then we can drill down and see the changes that happened in terms of expansion, contraction, also seeing the ingoing balance, etc. So let's look at that. Okay, so the initial view looks like this, and if we check the filter area, there are dimensions that we can filter on. We see by default this one called balance is active and only displaying the changes. So we can see month by month how the different revenue KPIs have changed. But if we instead want to see the outgoing balance, we can also select ingoing balance, meaning that we have ingoing balance for the month, we have the changes during the month, and that results in the outgoing balance. For example, if we look at the ARR change, we look at the ingoing balance and we look at the changes. In this case, we are mostly interested in the changes by definition. Let's remove the ingoing balance once again. Before we do that, let's look at the tabular data below. If we look at August and drill down, we can see we had an ingoing balance for ARR a little bit above 3 million euro. We increased our ARR for that month with new customers, 96,000, and expanded existing customers with 698, and then also contracted existing customers with 60, resulting in a total ARR for August of 3.8 million. As you can see, the outgoing balance or the ARR for July is what we view as ingoing balance for August. And similar then if you want to look at an annual level, or sorry, on a monthly level, you have the MRR, and also if you want to look at the contracted revenue. There's a major difference on how we classify these properties on the KPIs, such as expansion, contraction, whether it's contracted or recurring. So if we look at the contracted revenue, like CMRR, we use booking classification, the property found on the booking. But since we don't have similar properties on an order level, if we're looking at recurring revenue, then we need to find out these properties by comparing the MRR month by month for each account. For example, if we look at a certain account and we see that the MRR has gone up since last month, then we realize, okay, this is an expansion, and we can set the property of expansion. And on the opposite, if the MRR is lower than the month before, it's a contraction. And in the same logic, if we have an MRR of 0 for the current month, but had an existing MRR for this account last month, then it's a lost customer. So that's how we find out these properties on MRR, ARR, like for the recurring revenue. These properties have different base, but still we can compare them to each other. Let's now remove the ingoing balance, only looking at the changes. We are still on the overview. I haven't selected any KPI, so I have these 4 side by side. Let's drill down and see how we can analyze this further. I will start with the MRR. I click this one. And now I have a default drill down starting by change classification. And that's the dimension that holds these expansion contraction properties. It's also labeled by sorted, meaning that you have this number in front, they come in a certain order. Now, for example, I drill down by the change classifications and then down to legal entity. Here is the MRR changes by month. If I expand new customer, it's drilled down to legal entity and then to country. In the US entity, for these months, we have this amount of new customers. We can also go down to account level to see what the accounts actually are. There's only a value for 1 month, of course, since the new customer is defined on only 1 month. Looking further into this, now we can, as normal, we can change the KPI and still drill down into these categories. We can switch into tabular format. And now, if we want, we can add the ingoing balance. And here we have month by month, we can see how ARR is built up. So now we don't see the outgoing balance. If we want to do that, we can start by selecting all as a group to join them together. Then we can choose going down to change classification. So now we see the outgoing balance grouped together. The ARR for February is 2.1 million, and it consists of the ingoing balance and the new customer change. For the next month, we have an ingoing balance of 2.1, as we could see that was the outgoing balance of February. This is a simple way to see how your revenue changes from month to month and also drill down to the dimensions of choice. You can use a filter panel as usual and select a single legal entity or business unit or whatever dimension you want. And if you want to see it all expanded, of course we can do that. Let's go back to if you want to see it by country, for example, expand all. Then you have a flat table of all countries. And if we want to see only new customers, for example, we can go into filter and filter new customers. So here's a list of all new customers by month grouped into country.